Hey everyone, the best job in tech right now, business development at Nvidia. You're watching Techstrong Gang. Hi everyone, happy Thursday and welcome to another edition of the Techstrong Gang. You know, I had half of mine to dress up for Halloween today, but the other half of me didn't, so I didn't. But I was hoping maybe some of our gang would, and I see it looks like Mike Vizard's in his Steve Jobs costume, so we'll be bringing him out for a keynote. He's going to, you know, what does Apple have in store for us? But let me introduce you to the rest of our gang today. We are joined by Mitch Ashley, Teri Robinson, Garima Bajpai, Jon Swartz, and of course, Mr. Jobs. Mike, beyond dressing up for Halloween, you were busy listening to keynotes, sucking up some Nvidia. You know, I said that the best job in tech right now is being a biz dev person at Nvidia. The partnerships there come fast and furious, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty amazing. They had their GTC event in Washington, and it was quite literally a celebration of innovation. And to be honest, it's kind of sick, all the things that they're up to, and it makes you wonder what everybody else is doing. But they were talking about everything from partnerships with Uber to create a new network for autonomous vehicles. Eli Lilly has built out some massive Gen AI platform with hundreds of thousands of Blackwell processors. They are also doing simulations of nuclear fusion reactors and all kinds of amazing stuff. And the core announcements were that they were also going to figure out how to replace all those base stations with GPU base stations so we can run AI closer to the network edge. And they were also talking about physical and robotics AI out at the edge with a new chipset. And then finally, and these are just all the things I can remember off the top of my head, they're talking about network links with quantum computers because they're like saying, hey, conventional computers will connect to quantum computers. It just won't be traditional CPUs. It's all going to be GPU driven. And I could not help but think back, Alan, to what you were talking about earlier this week, where we just live in some amazing age of innovation here, and we haven't quite seen it come to fruition yet. But every time I look at what NVIDIA is looking at doing, I always look across the rest of the AI landscape, and I'm like, well, what the hell's everybody else doing?
Well, this is why they got $4 trillion or whatever it is in market cap. And
hey, well, but you know, today they just went over 5 trillion. They're the first company ever to do that. They just did it literally a few minutes ago.
5 trillion, and this is why.
5 trillion. They're worth more than the GDP of every country except the US and China now.
Amazing.
So here's the question. First of all, before we get to the question, congratulations to Jensen Huang and the entire NVIDIA team. You know what? These people have worked hard for 20 years, and they have reached the pinnacle of pinnacles. And Mike, you're right. It seems like they've got their finger in every pie on the planet. But nothing, right? Nothing stays the same forever. Nature hates entropy. And things will churn and things will change. We talked about this on yesterday's gang. Everybody gets their 15 minutes of fame. Now, NVIDIA is having more than their 15 minutes. But I think the real question here is NVIDIA creating the tide that lifts all boats, or is it just lifting the NVIDIA boat? And that ultimately will determine how big a disruption, how big a wave, how big a revolution all of this comes. Because even at 5 trillion, can't do it alone. That's my take.
A comment on that, Alan, is it seems like the lifting of the tide of all boats seems to be the biz dev activity, right? It's not just other people also innovating. It's all these deals that they also announce when they announce their own product announcements. So whether it's Microsoft or Oracle or whoever, they're all making announcements with each other, oftentimes with Nvidia. And I think it was just Red Hat was part of that announcement, if I remember right, Mike, from the conference. So that's part of the. Maybe it's artificial, maybe it's not, but that seems to be the biggest method of lifting all the boats.
Can I like offer? Oh, so go ahead, Mike.
I'm not entirely sure to what degree all boats are being lifted, right? I did notice, like, when I watched the keynote, about the only other company in the tech sector who got like a shout out for a use case was Oracle, involving something they're doing with the DOE and Nvidia. But everywhere else, it was like almost no mention of AWS, Google, no mention of Dell, no mention of HPE, and it almost feels like most of the people who are doing deals with Nvidia are doing them direct, and maybe just working with Nvidia, and then Nvidia is figuring out where to run these things, or in the case of Lilly, some of this stuff is just in their own data centers. But it was just pretty clear to me that most of these projects are directly led by Nvidia, and not necessarily them just giving a bunch of chips, but actually going in and working with people to build these things.
It's like in historic perspective for me. I mean, Mike and Alan and Mitch, all of us, we've been looking at this stuff for a long time, but it kind of, in a sense, what they're doing in terms of chips, robotics, infrastructure, quantum computing, data centers, it's, if you indulge me, it's kind of reminiscent of what's going on in the World Series with Otani, like this never before unprecedented behemoth comes along, and it's shining brighter than anybody. And all these other companies that did their announcements are part of this constellation, whether it's Red Hat, ServiceNow, Checkpoint, HPE, they're all just secondary players supporting this megastar. And I don't know what the ultimate strategy is, but for now, the one who's benefiting is Nvidia, the only one really.
All right. Well, okay, you guys. So yeah. But my question is, to what extent is the government going to start sinking ships? Because Trump's over in
They're
Asia
sinking
right now,
ships
right?
now. They're blowing
That's
stuff
right.
out of the water and killing them.
But yeah, they're doing that, and I hear we're going to bring back steam-powered catapults too on our aircraft carriers, but that's for another day. But I mean, he is talking to Xi, right, this week about Nvidia chips, the Blackwell. So what's that going to mean for the whole marketplace even?
Yes, I think the Chinese are already kind of busily figuring out what their own GPU strategy is. So
And they will, and if they don't get Nvidia, that'll just spur them on and make their own. And maybe that shakes things up. But let me put my old biz dev hat on, because at the end of the day, I'm a biz dev guy. Here's the real question. You mentioned AWS, Google, Microsoft seem to be frozen out of it. It's not that they're frozen out of it, Mike. I think they don't want to be the frog to NVIDIA's scorpion. Okay? Because NVIDIA views them as, look, these people have ambitions of making their own chips. Yeah, that doesn't play well in Jensen's world. All the chips belong to me. Right? And so if you're willing to work with NVIDIA's chips and use NVIDIA's software that helps them lock in that big M word, right, that we used to not like, but I guess now we like it, they're all for making deals with you, right? They'll make deals till the cows come home. If you have plans to potentially make your own chips, though, you're not going to get the love.
There were two things that Jensen Huang kind of stressed over and over again, and one was how vertically integrated they are, and he was touting not just the GPUs, but kind of gleefully pointing to CUDA as kind of like the software gem in their entire stack, and then he also pointed out they're making DPUs that are offloading processing from GPUs, and he said we're heavily invested in the networking side, so they're like becoming this entirely vertically integrated stack. And then he took it a step further, and this part I'm not so sure I agree with, but he was making a case that says that AI in of itself is an entirely new vertical industry, and therefore is not necessarily part of the IT industry, but something completely new and distinct and apart from thereof. I'm not sure I agree with that, but it was a bold statement, and he kind of is trying to sit there and say, look, AI is going to be something apart from everything else.
I agree with him. I agree with him. There's much more to AI than IT. And I think we've got to recognize that. Right? I was out at dinner in Pittsburgh this weekend, and I had a chance to speak to some Steelers fans when we weren't talking football, from all different walks of life. Not AI people, not IT people, not even people who are, they're just starting their AI kind of experimentation. This is going to disrupt everything. My feeds, no matter what social media I'm on, are full of people with robotics, different, whether it's the Tesla, the Figure, or another one I saw today, Neo something, doing basically domestic housework, serving dinner, doing things like this, like out of a sci-fi movie. Or
the Jetsons.
Right? And so for AI to succeed at that level, for AI to be your medical diagnostician, diagnosing your medical conditions, for AI to be your lawyer, for AI to be your editor, Mike, John, for AI to be your
I know.
editor, we need to lift it out of the IT thing, because that lawyer doesn't want to call IT every time the AI makes a legal opinion, or the doctor it makes a diagnosis. It's going to rise above. It's going to be woven into the fabric of civilization. This is an industrial revolution.
They do a really good job. I mean, what 2 or 3 times they do these major conferences, they do a great job of creating this narrative, because they're in the position to do so, where they lay out just what you said, Alan. They talk about what's going to happen in terms of physical AI, in terms of vertical markets, and who they're partnering with, whether it's manufacturing, healthcare, retail, food service. They're in that position to do it, and they've got people lining up to work with them. So as long as they keep doing this, we're going to see their market valuation just skyrocket.
It's a wonder what $5 trillion will do for you.
So I don't agree with AI as an industry. Flat out, there are existing vertical industries, and AI will be embedded into healthcare, and it will be embedded in manufacturing, and it will transform all of those industry sectors. But I don't really see AI as a standalone vertical in of itself, unless we have some like brand new, entirely different use case that we're never used before for AI, which I have not seen yet. Right? I've seen AI be used in existing.
Let me give you an example.
All right.
Is your cell phone AI? Is your cell phone IT?
Cell phone is IT and telecom.
You think it's
software
telecom,
development.
but you're adding the IT on like the tail on the donkey.
Well, telecom is a subset IT or one or the
So
other.
telecom is it's an awful big subset.
Well, that's true.
Well, I think the way to look at it, Alan, is I think it's more
It's IT
both
adjacent.
vertically integrated and horizontally integrated. In other words, AI will be in all parts of our economy, our tech stack, all of it. Your example about cell phone is it IT? Maybe IT doesn't produce your cell phone, but software developers write code today, at least, that run those phones, and also run the apps on the phones. So it's based on same technology that we use. My question about is it a separate industry is, does it pull away from, and IT doesn't come with it as part of that movement? I think it comes with it, but that's my opinion.
So I think when it becomes so embedded that you don't need, it works independent of having an on-staff IT person help you with your phone, for instance, or with your robot, or with your medical diagnostic apparatus. People disassociate it with IT. It's tech, yes. Is it technology? Yes, but not all technology is information technology.
It's not all done by IT people, I think, is what part of what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right?
And so when people move above it, it moves beyond just IT. It's not, It's not the CIO's purview or that kind of thing. Will it run software written by developers, and those developers may in fact be AI themselves? Yes. But when AI is writing the software, it's all AI to me. But here's the really scary thing, Mike. I read an article today that said they're now seeing that some of these AIs are resisting being shut off. They don't like to be shut off.
Yeah.
So I'm envisioning a Planet of the Apes kind of thing where these things are servants for about 200-300 years, and all of a sudden Caesar is born, right? And Caesar AI is going to lead the AIs into the revolution. I don't remember which Planet of the Apes that was. Was that Conquest of the Planet of the Apes?
Conquest. It was the fourth one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, but one of the definitions of sentient is being aware that you exist. So if you're afraid to get turned off, you must be aware that you exist. So there's an interesting paradox.
That sounds like something out of Monty Python. But yeah, I get it. Look, it's certainly interesting times, and Nvidia is, no one can deny their moment in the sun. And again, to their credit, they have this lead. They have this gigantic $5 trillion market cap, and they're using it to drive, good work on their part. Good work. A lot of companies fumble that kind of lead. They get fat and lazy.
I have some pop culture for you, Alan. There's an old movie, 1970. It's called Colossus, the Forbin Project.
I remember that one. I love that movie.
It's where the computer becomes sentient, and they're using it, basically handing it more and more for the nuclear defense. It's kind of like an early version of war games. But it becomes sentient in all ways, and including shutting people out. And
wasn't that Skynet?
No, that wasn't Skynet. That's the Terminator.
This is before Skynet. This is from the
1970.
No, I remember this movie. I remember who the star was. Yeah, that stuff used to. This is why I am where I am today, from movies like that.
Alan, it was on Channel 11 in New York every other week.
Yeah, on WPIX with Officer Joe
WGN,
McCarthy.
Chicago for me.
Anyway, look, we're
the Nvidia
overtime,
stuff works though. Nvidia works. 3 months ago they hit 4 trillion. That was 3 months ago. So
yeah,
the
so
windows
6
are getting
trillion
shorter.
is coming. You think
It's
6
coming.
trillion?
Give them 6 weeks. Yeah.
All right.
Crazy. All right, hey, we're going to take a break here. I got to go check my Nvidia stock holdings. We'll be back with more. What do we got coming up? Oh, more AI. Not IT, AI. You're watching Techstrong Gang.
You've earned it. The spotlight, the responsibility, the weight of teams, companies, and entire industries fall on your shoulders. Lives depend on your decisions, your home life included. At work, you're protected, physically and digitally. Nothing gets through your team without a fight. But in a globally connected world, everyone sees you, including those who mean to cause you and your organization harm. And now home, your sanctuary. Attackers see an opportunity. Your digital front door is wide open. And what compromises your home can breach your boardroom. Because the devil's greatest trick isn't targeting your workplace firewall. It's convincing you that your personal life isn't at risk. Black Cloak. Digital executive protection, defending the new attack surface. Your personal life.
Hey, folks, we're back. And yes, it is conference season. And folks at GitHub had their annual show, and they were highlighting the fact that they're going to have this thing called a platform that manages your AI agents within your DevOps workflows. And this is how we're going to execute software engineering from here on out. And to me, one of the things that came across was how ambitious they are. And they're going well beyond just kind of hosting a bunch of repositories, and they kind of want to manage this thing, or at least the AI agents, and they don't really care where they come from, whether they build it or not. But Mitch, what's your take on what's going on here?
That's the big shift in direction and strategy is, we're not just a repository company. We're the platform for agent or agentic-based development, agent ops, whatever term you want to use for it. And at the center of it, yes, is this agent HQ, which is essentially, we've talked about what's the control plane? Where's the place where you manage and control and direct, and you apply security and you do governance and things like that for the agents that are working for you. And that's partially what Agent HQ is. It's also shifting from being in the code editor and directing through prompts to using more of a screen that's just about managing multiple agents doing multiple tasks, either on the same or different projects, and developers moving more into a director kind of role, or platform engineers and DevOps engineers. The sort of really big vision is not just Microsoft's or GitHub's agents. It's Anthropic was part of the announcement. OpenAI was part of the announcement. They'll support XAI. They'll support basically you want to support anybody's agent. Now this is focused on IT, software development, et cetera. It leverages a lot of technology from Microsoft. There's a planning mode that Microsoft announced for Copilot. Of course, it makes big use of VS Copilot, VS Code. You can do Agent HQ functionality in VS Code or on the GitHub interface. There's a planning mode. There's also some things around model selection that it will do for you, do model selection for you automatically. Now, I think one of the things we're headed into, and I agree, I appreciate your perspective on this, is if we're going to have a lot of agents doing a lot of work, directed by a few people, the cost of doing this was going to escalate greatly. I don't know if you've done any development with AI agents and the API costs, unless you're using some of the zero level models that are either free or mini level models, it gets expensive very fast. So cost management's going to be an issue down the road, not so much now, but I think that's one of the challenges we're going to hit. There's probably other bottlenecks. What was your impression of the announcement? I appreciate your perspective on it.
Yeah, I am unusually excited about this because I'll tell you some reasoning around it. And these agent orchestrators are also there in the cloud ecosystem. So I'll start with this Agent HQ announcement. They are tapping around 180 million users, which they have on GitHub, right? And the excitement I have is around developer centricity. Because if you think about like the differentiation, which I can draw a line. Like I've also used agent orchestrations in the cloud provider domain, like AWS, and Azure also provides this kind of capability. But the difference is the transparency and control. So agents will have explicit identities, audit trails, at least they are claiming to have that, and will be governed by organization policies, rather than, if you see the cloud provider orchestrators and the agent orchestration layer, it's primarily managed by the cloud provider, and the controls and the varying granularity is in some aspects is there with the cloud provider. The custom policy setups and the cross cloud transparency is also something which is very challenging at this point in time. I also would like to highlight one more point that, from an open ecosystem perspective, and you highlighted this, Mitch, that, this HQ is an agent agnostic view. So you can mix and match between models, vendors, reducing lock-in risks, etc. Right? And whereas if you see cloud providers, it's optimized for their own agents. With openness and depending on vendor strategy and cross cloud standards which are in making, right? I mean, we have not fully understood how and what is going to happen there. Another thing which also gets me excited is the workflow coverage, because if you see the announcement, it works from a developer centric point of view, which is basically the GitHub workflow controls how and what agent orchestration would do. In this case, let's say PR reviews, for example, which is a big headache in the context of AI, vibe coding, and all that, right? And co-pilots, writing coding buddies, writing your code, branching controls, for example, agent identities, and also think about this. You can have custom rules which can be exposed from a developer ecosystem centricity, right? Whereas if you see the difference, what we see today in the cloud orchestration layer, where they have these agents orchestrated, they are at a infrastructure as a code, security scanning, monitoring, and scaling kind of aspects. They are kind of overseeing things, but I think it from this announcement I'm seeing more value for the development ecosystem or developers, right? So this is an exciting part. Another area which we have to watch out for, and which you highlighted, that right now the licensing model is not very clear, to be honest, because what they're saying is that they have integrated it in the Copilot. And now how the subscription based model would kind of go along with the licensing, it's kind of wishy-washy at this point in time. Maybe that cost consciousness and how this whole cost buildup would happen is another matter of concern. I always bring like cons before the pros, because pros are very obvious to understand. I mean, everybody is looking at agents and agent orchestrators. Will they will have their own life, and if that can release some kind of a cognitive load on developers, that's great. But there is a possibility of compounding errors, right? So if an orchestrated agentic workflow has some errors, I mean, you can imagine that it can go a long way, right? And that is something which we need to watch out for. Black box problem, again the same issue, but with GitHub I think I'm more confident. I am a developer persona type, so I like these things. But when you see it in the cloud ecosystem, it gives a little bit more black box perspective. Here, maybe we can be more confident. And the last part is skill gap. So how do we build these agents? How we integrate them? What skill ecosystem would be needed? I think we need to watch out for that.
I would say the whole thing, honestly, is kind of starting to make me feel a little bit sad. And here's what I'm going to be sad for. You go meet somebody and they're a developer and they tell you they write code and you go, oh, that's interesting. Tell me about, what goes into that. And now I'm afraid in the future, I'm going to meet somebody and I'm going to say, they're going to tell me they're a developer. And I'm going to say, what goes into that? And they're going to tell me, I read code all day generated by a machine. At which point, my next response is going to be, how about those Yankees? So,
I think that's one of the issues, though, is first of all, we haven't addressed the hallucination problem. You mentioned, Garima, about compounding errors is also, they didn't fix the hallucination problem. And there's no point of saying, did they say, or would you expect people to review every part of this code? It's just not going to happen, especially as you scale up and create more and more. Now, AI is doing the code reviews, but there again, it's not 100%. So at some point, there has to be a counterbalance of, well, if humans can't review all this and we can't, do we have specialized agents, models, whatever, that do a very good job with few hallucinations in specific domains to help solve that? Or is it addressed some other way? But at some point, you'll have so much stuff out there with so many, whatever's going on. It doesn't matter whether you can review the code because you didn't, and it's doing what it's doing, and you just kind of live with it.
mhm. So if that's the case, then what is the role of the developer going forward? What is the job?
I think here's my view of it is, this isn't the Satya demo. I'm going to create the snake game, right? Here's what I did in half an hour on my computer. Isn't this wonderful? It is still directed by someone who knows how to create software and how to architect software and what needs to be done. Now, how it's being today, we do that through here. I'm going to write this prompt, do this next. I'm going to write this prompt, do this next. Guiding it through. There is a planning capability where you describe what you want to do, almost like a product requirements document. They described it. But anyway, to create a plan that will help you direct the agents. It's still you directing it. Just like my own experience is, there's not enough air handling in this. There's not the logging that I want, that we're going to be able to tell what's going on when this breaks. Why did all of a sudden you decide to change the key to get access to that model? Who hallucinated that? So there's still, it's like you need a surgeon to run the robot. The robot's not doing it all agentically by itself yet. Not to say developers are surgeons, but they are smart people.
I have some views on this. What stops Mike and Jon and Alan from being coders? We don't know how to code. That's it. We don't, we look at computer code. HTML code I could kind of figure out. CSS throws me a little bit out. But beyond that, I look at code and it's all Greek to me, right? That's why I have a lot of respect for developers, because they could code. They know how to code in Rust and Go and C and Python and what have you. And some of it a layman could look at it and say, I think I see something, and other times we don't know what the hell it says. But I know what I want my apps to do. I could give you a requirement doc and say, hey, developer, this is the this is the functionality I want in my app. Right? In that regard, we're all developers. We all have ideas of what we want our apps to be. I think of this stuff as the great democratizer. It allows all of us to be developers. It allows all of us to write that requirements doc, Mitch, in plain language. And then the AI does its thing. And it may very well be that when the AI does its thing, it doesn't do it in Python or Go or Rust or whatever language we want to use. It may be writing it back into machine code because it's more efficient, or assembly, or God knows what, that will be totally unreadable by humans. And we may need an AI an AI support kind of bot that can go when there is something that hits the fan, when something doesn't work. We're not going to be able to look at the code ourselves and see what it is, but we'll have an AI that does. And so to me, the developer of the future.
I think the real pivot point, inflection point is, and I had this experience with early code generators. Going back, like even with COBOL code generator, that's how far back as it goes, is even though it was in COBOL, you couldn't read it. You would never write it this way. It was just unintelligible. Now, the code that's generated today is much more readable, but there's a lot of it, and you didn't write it, so you're coming up to speed on someone else's code, in this case, AI. I think we reach a point where the time where you have a code editor open while you're running AI to create the application and the software, whatever you're building, that's going to be the exception, not the.
I agree.
And that's what you're talking about. That's when you really have democratized it. And by the way, AI will take your prior product requirements document and say, well, there's some things missing here, or I would suggest enhancing it this way. So it can make what your intent is, even flesh it out better for you, maybe even improve it.
Right. I'll give you an analogy, right? I mean, when I started to work with computers, the computers were like a lot of open box technology where I could fix things by myself. I could open up my computer boxes and I can fix things. I can add RAM. I can, change my, configurations of my computer, right? And we have come a long way. Now we all work in laptops, right? So what happens is that the technology is commoditized. We bring it in a box. So the same thing would happen with AI applications, coming along with us and developing code. So these software applications are commoditized, right? So it's that kind of a shift happening, but it's not so soon that you will trust these AI built applications. And this is a good segue to the next question you had, Mike, on the surveys. The survey, which we see the results of the survey from DevOps.com as well as from the DORA report, that there is a substantial amount of trust issue with AI writing code, and this needs to break, and this will break with time and with quality developers putting more effort to integrate AI assisted code into the ecosystem.
Absolutely. Hey, we're over time on this one again. It looks like we have some interesting. I love the discussion, but we do have to take a break and come back into our third segment here. The Bionic hacker. Somehow AI is going to play into this too. You're watching Techstrong Gang.
Discover Techstrong Group, the epicenter of tech innovation. We're your go-to for reaching IT leaders and practitioners worldwide. Our secret? Impactful content that sparks awareness, engagement, and top-quality leads. With us, you'll access editorial websites, streaming videos, virtual events, custom content, analyst research, and more. Join our satisfied clients. Let's revolutionize your tech journey. Contact us today and tell your story to the world in the most powerful way with Techstrong Group.
Hey, folks, we're back, and there's a thing happening. It's called Bionic hackers, and I'm not even going to explain what this is because Teri wrote an article about it on Security Boulevard. So, Teri, jump in here and explain what the heck is a Bionic hacker?
For all of you that are picturing Steve Austin running, this is not quite as sexy, I guess, as that. Yeah, thanks, Mitch. That's much better than what I could do. Anyway, so this is basically a blend of human beings and, you guessed it, AI, right? They're using AI, these researchers, as a catalyst, and they can accelerate things like, recon and triage and scaling pattern recognition and those kinds of things. Ostensibly to be able to, defend quicker and better. And it's so, and close this as HackerOne. It comes from a HackerOne report, right? And they're saying, it's going to close that gap between traditional automation and human testing. So I guess that's lofty. And then there's going to be the other side of this, which I'm sure we're going to get into, is that the bad guys,
Right. So aren't there going to be black hat bionic hack bots and white hat ones, and who knows, maybe even gray ones? And is this just going to play out? And I guess my question, though, is it happening so fast that humans can't keep track of what's going on? So I have no idea, like, if we're winning or losing and what might happen because the bad guys are doing stuff in nanoseconds and we're responding in nanoseconds.
Well, yeah, I mean, they said, defenders, the bad guys are exploiting before defenders even recognize the threat at all. So that's an issue. I don't think it's just hard to see how anybody can keep up with all of this.
I think from a security point of view, the mantra has to be, you need AI to fight AI.
Yeah.
It's the bottom line. If your security tools are not leveraging AI to keep up with the AI threat landscape, with the AI empowered threat landscape out there, they're just not up to snuff.
Well, we don't have enough people hours to review code AI is writing. We certainly don't have enough people to manually go after what's happening from an AI attack standpoint.
But Teri, I got to tell you too, I was thinking RoboCop kind of thing.
I know. Well, I don't know. I guess, I'm old school on the Bionic.
Look, we have the technology. What was Oscar's last name on that show?
Exactly.
Anybody for extra points?
Yeah. And I imagine it's
Oscar Golden. Mike, you got that?
I think.
Yeah, it was Oscar Golden. There you go.
There you go.
Oscar's last name for 10 points.
That was on an ABC
so
channel.
This actually, you kind of hit on something there too about the resources. I guess one of the most frightening parts of this report, and it's not a surprise to anybody, is that most of the CISOs that oversee the AI security and data privacy say they don't have the resources to do it effectively. I think it was 84% or something like that. It's really high. Which is, doesn't well.
This is the crazy part about it. So let's tie this block to the last block. So we're going to take all the money we saved in app dev and use it to buy more security stuff to secure the stuff that the AI agents and robots are creating, right? And so are we saving money net new here, or are we just kind of moving buckets around?
I think we're shifting buckets, chess pieces.
Yeah, but this is also answer to the question which you had earlier, that what developers could or would do. So this is the biggest shift in the developer skill set, that they need to ensure that they are cyber savvy.
Mm-hmm. Well, then to your point, and we were talking about this in between blocks, but I'll bring it up now. Do we need like some sort of rating system for the security of the AI applications that we're generating so that when Alan creates something, it'll get a rating that's fairly low. And if Mitch and Garima build something, it'll get a high rating. And we'll know what the security issues are just based on the rating in the apps.
So trust me or not, this is already happening. So when we are using wipe coding, a lot of developers I talk to, they have some kind of a scanning mechanism, PR mechanism, who is actually ensuring that we do this and we give the feedback to our coding buddy. So it is already kind of in making, and the agents which we will have will be able to build the trust as well in to ensure that whatever code we are writing is going through the right code quality checks.
So let me play devil's advocate here, or AI's best friend. For as long as I'm in tech and as long as I'm in security, all I've heard is we've got to get the quality of our code better, right? Jen Esterly from CISA came out with a thing about a week or two ago. We don't have a security problem. We have a software quality problem, right? And that's before AI was writing code. We've been on, that was the whole point of DevSecOps. Get developers to write more secure code. Let's put more better and more secure code into our pipelines that we deploy. Now we got AI generating all this code. And granted, spoke to a CTO or a CISO last week who told me that AI generated code has 2 to 300% more vulnerabilities than average human generated code today. But I think the promise here is that somehow we can get AI to write better quality code at scale than humans are capable of. At scale and economically.
There's the startup Mercor that's like valued at $10 billion, and their whole business model is hiring people, contractors to train AI. AI training on the corpus of available information is one thing. It has to have built-in expertise, because the only real way to solve it, to Jen Easterly's point, is the problem is at the point of origin. Because if we don't solve it there, everything else happens downstream.
Yep.
And we know from theory of constraints, right? from DevOps, all you're doing is creating more work to happen later. And yes, if AI is going to do it downstream, okay, but still you're just generating
you got to get it at the source.
Work for bots, and it's not, and things will get through. So that's really the only way to solve it, I believe.
Yeah, you got to get it at the source. But if we do that, mark down security or AppSec people as obsolete as well.
Well,
Mike doesn't like that, I could tell.
What do you want, secure code or AppSec people?
Yeah, it boils down to the deliberate organization strategy, which is directly mapped to the economic impact. So when the software becomes untrustworthy and unreliable, what happens? The economic downturn, right? And that is where the organization strategy and the deliberate attempt to improve the quality. So it will take some cycles, Ellen. I understand, you have been alluding to the fact that this is not new. Security, vulnerability ecosystem needs better focus, better investment, but it's coming. I'm seeing that the positive side of it.
Yeah.
Is it really coming? Because, we have managed to build this $1 trillion IT industry on insecure code. So I'm like, what's going to be different?
That's why it's coming.
But all kidding aside, that is the promise. That is the promise, that we're going to do it better with AI. It's not going to be so insecure. Because let's, the definition of doing the same thing over, making the same mistakes over and over again, right? Well, This is a way of maybe breaking that cycle. It gives us more hope than trying to say we're going to get human developers to give a crap more about the quality of their code.
I guess now, there's also this bridge in Brooklyn that's for sale. So let me know if you're interested.
All right. Doubting Michael. Doubting Michael.
Well, and some basic hygiene will go a long way too. I think almost all of the AI related security incidents in this past year came about because there wasn't proper AI access controls. So,
Well,
And
we got to remember, we're only this generative AI, and now we're moving to agentic AI. This is 2-3 years old.
I will tell you that my confirmation name is indeed Thomas. So there you
Was it? Okay, there you go. Michael Thomas.
I just
wow,
wanted
they
to
had you
add
pegged.
one-
a lot.
Bless you, son. All right. How about
I just
AI
wanted to add one
priest?
last
How-
thing.
Go ahead,
Eat
Garima.
our own dog food. We have this DevOps.com survey, which actually reflects the fact that 57% the respondents have negative or neutral view on the poor quality code quality and the
Yeah.
impact of AI into that. So, I mean,
You
do
know-
read the DevOps.com survey and the report to ensure that, we take the right steps.
Look, it's the technology we all love to hate because deep down it scares the hell out of us that it's going to take our jobs. I'll leave it at that. Hey, this is a great Thursday. Can't wait to see what Friday brings. Maybe we should ask AI. But you can watch Techstrong TV immediately following today's gang. We've got some good stuff on there. And thank you for watching. Mike, John, Mitch, Teri, Garima, thank you all for being on the gang today. Until tomorrow, this is Alan Shimel. We're out.